Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Look, Wrestling 101, classes in session. Pay attention to the teachings, that's from Andrew and Derek. I mean, these guys making a killing with no competition. Dynamic duo better than the Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys. Everybody make some noise, mess with them, you get destroyed. They cannot be beat, take a seat. Watch them do their thing on the MIC. Face defeat, they cannot be seen like JC. Oh my goodness, it's a killing spree.
Well, let me tell you, brother, for all the stars and the inside information and all the good stuff, Hogan always chooses Wrestling IQ 101, brother. And what you're going to do with Randomania and Wrestling IQ 101 run wild on you.
Hey everyone, this is Andrew from Wrestling IQ 101. When I'm not hosting our podcast, I'm usually at collarandelbowbrand.com. That's right, Collar and Elbow is the only place that combines wrestling with street attire. And I know what you're thinking, I want to look fashionable too, and I also want to save 10%. So head over to collarandelbowbrand.com and use the promo code WIQ101 and look fashionable and save some money. And now, on with the show. Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Wrestling IQ 101. I'm Andrew, and you can follow Wrestling IQ 101 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Wrestling IQ 101. You can listen to us right here on YouTube by hitting that subscribe button. You can check back on all the past episodes, new episodes, and stay current. And today, I'm sitting here with ECW Legend Damien Kane. Man, it's great to talk to you.
Hi, how you doing? Godfather of Extreme.
Yeah. And what an extreme career you've had, because, I mean, when you do things big. I mean, most people take a couple of months off. You took 25 years off, and now you're getting back into the world of professional wrestling. What have you been doing for the last 25 years?
Oh, man, I lived a lifetime in that time, 25 years is a long time. The only reason why it happened that way, back in the day, I started back in 1980. And, from that point on, my main focus was to get established and, start to build a career. And that's what I did. I was very fortunate when I got started. I ended up working, with, my trainer was Killer Kowalski. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I was very, very, very lucky. I can't really call it any more than that, because I was in the right place at the right time. What you had happening at the time was the transitional period of time when senior and junior, went from WWF to the WWF. Mm-hmm. And, the concept was on the table. Everybody knows the whole story. Mm-hmm. Any historians know what I'm talking about, where, a lot of guys didn't want to go along with the new game plan, Yeah. And those guys were the tried and true legends of the world of professional wrestling that band together. And, when you're talking about guys like Killer Kowalski, Bruno Sammartino, Dominic DiNucci, the Ciboldis, and promoting Angelo Ciboldi, there was the right people involved. We had Joe McHugh, the ring announcer that was also doing the WWF stuff at the time, the early stuff when Senior was there. But it's a good circle of people to be working with. Trust me. Yeah. you had all the greats, all Valiant Brothers with Johnny and Jerry. You had the Soto brothers, Manuel and Roberto Soto. David Sammartino getting started with his career. I had the opportunity to work with him quite a bit. Larry Zbyszko, they had carried that feud over from the original feud with Bruno, and it was a very good place to start. I was very fortunate. And, we went up and down. We covered everything pretty much from Prescott, Maine, all the way down through New England, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, out into Ohio. I mean, I was very, very fortunate, because I was one of the guys that was Walter's guys that when Walter and Dominic and everybody looked at the talent that they were training, and new guys coming in, and they wanted to see what they had to work with. So, I had an opportunity to, show them the interview stuff, because they seen us work in the ring. They came and watched, and everybody's sitting around and critiquing, what they're seeing, and trying to, make everybody ready. And because they were doing TV, the whole 9 yards, everything was going to be a go, So the big part of that is seeing if any of the talent can talk. You have to be able to carry an interview or a promo, so they wanted to see where they were at with that. And set up promos there in the gym, and counted you down the same as if you were doing a show, And what it came down to was that when I had my opportunity, it was, all systems go. In my book, you got to remember my background before I got into the wrestling business. I lived a half hour, 45 minutes away from both of the towns that they did their original TV tapings in, with Allentown's Ag Hall on a Tuesday night, and then the boys would stay at the George Washington, and go over and then work the Hamburg Fieldhouse on Wednesday nights every 3 weeks. Yeah. And they do, the routine, the stories, the origins, and that was my education. I was there every 3 weeks, and I was very fortunate because, I didn't have a father figure. He had, I was raised by a single mom, and she had gotten me a mentor through the Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, and great organization, by the way, great organization. And what they did was, the guy that mentored me was actually a local guy from the area. He was a former police officer. He was also a radio dispatcher, police dispatcher. And little did I know, when we had gotten together, he, at one point in time, I don't remember the details of it, it's been so long ago, but he actually wrestled. He actually was a professional wrestler. Never made a big name or anything that, recognizable, but he had promo pictures and stuff. And, I was fascinated because, I was into wrestling, wrestling was the thing. I'd wake up Saturday mornings and click, first thing I'd do is want to watch wrestling, And you had championship wrestling from the Allentown Ag Hall, and you had the all-star wrestling from the Hamburg Fieldhouse, so you could see how it played back. And, for years, since I was a young child, I was there every 3 weeks, and I was getting in there early because the coincidence is that this gentleman that was my big brother, he actually worked extra security for him as an off-duty officer.
Wow.
So, yeah. So he took me up there with him in the afternoons, before the people got there. And we'd go in the back door by the kitchen, and, we'd be in there for setting up. And what they did was they always shot their promos and interviews ahead of time without the people in the empty arena with Vince and whoever was on that lineup. Well, I got to see how that happened. Firsthand, because I was one of the people that were in there, and now I started putting together what I see on TV and what I'm seeing live in front of me. When you're sitting there on TV, you see that one character who's, you're either loving him or hating him, or you have some emotion for him, one way or the other, and you're into it, And then when you're there for the first time, that I seen Vince McMahon standing by ringside. And the boys that were going to be interviewed at that point in time were Georgie Animal Steel, Chief J Strongbow, Superstar Billy Graham, and they were sitting out there on the other side of the camera, naturally, waiting their turn.
Wow. Wow.
And,
and those are some heavy hitters.
And I'm at that point just a serious fan, and I had seen kind of, I had been watching real close, and I used to be stationed over by the Heels locker room. There was a set of closed bleachers between the Heels locker room door and the area that they sat on a little bench outside that door. And then there was a roped off area. Well, that one section of bleachers that was closed off against the wall, I would be standing on the rafter right next to the men's room, right there on that rafter, leaning up against the wall, which elevated me high enough to see over anybody that might be standing, And by being there, the guys on the other side of that closed section of bleachers was the Heels, the bad guys,
Oh, wow.
And I'm seeing them stand there with a towel on their shoulders and a cigarette in their mouth, watching matches and talking and shooting the shit,
Wow.
and that was my first real introduction to to the behind the scenes of anything with professional wrestling, and I was hooked. I mean, I knew that I was meant for this, and from that point on, that became my goal in life. And when I was old enough to pursue something, I talked to Phil Zacco, and he pulls out his little black book in the office, and he gives me Walter Kowalski's number and tells me to give him a call. And when he's done training me, since I live in the area, I'd be one of the locals, and then they bring the names in. I knew the routine, and I was like, well, yeah, this is my big chance, And that's exactly what I did. I followed up with Walter, and we had talked, and I sent him some pictures ahead of time because he was in New England, I was in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So, I sent him some pictures ahead of time, so he got a chance to look at me and talked to him by phone, and he invited me up, and we take a look, see how it goes, and that's what I did. I packed up the van, went to New England, and introduced myself on the night that he was going to be there, and he put me in the ring. We talked a little bit about, what to expect. We didn't. It wasn't a long conversation because he was just trying to get a feel for me at the time, and then he put me in the ring and moved me around the ring a little bit, run the ropes, try to, do some stuff. And he was like, "Oh, you seem to have the right idea, So there we go. We were off and running. And from that point on, I was a quick learner, and he acknowledged that. He's like, you sure you never did this before? And I was like, I've been watching for a long time, real close, Yeah. And I just know that this is what I want to do, and I take it very serious, And he was impressed with my work ethic, let's say.
Yeah.
And I was anxious. I was hitting the weights. I was working out during the day and training at night. I was only there for that reason. I was from Pennsylvania. I had to go up there and stay in the middle of winter.
Wow.
It was over the winter season in New England.
Oh my God.
I'm living out of a van because I didn't have enough money at the time to be able to go and get a single room was like almost $100 or more a week.
I'm sorry that happened to you. That's crazy, Damien. But it paid off because you were able to really live out this dream, be a wrestler and a manager. But before we get into some of that stuff here, 25 years is a long time. Did you pick up other passions besides wrestling, like baseball or like football?
Well, in the 25 years I was gone, we knew, when I say we, I mean me and my wife at the time, Lady Alexandra, we had talked about trying to settle down for a little while and start a family. And, we had worked together for several years already in the business. And she's younger than I am.
Yeah.
And her biological clock started ticking, saying, I want to have a baby. And we were... for lack of a better term, we were pretty much where I wanted us to be without that final step of the big stage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I did it the hard way. I didn't ever want to go. I made up my mind that with the start that I had, I would take that ball that they gave me and run with that because that gave me a good foundation to start with. It gave me a lot of good connections for all the promoters up and down East Coast. You know, all the boys that were promoting out there around Danucci and Bruno out in West Pennsylvania and Ohio and all those towns. You know, it was just one of those things. I'm sorry. Remind me what the main point was.
Oh yeah. What I mean, besides, you know, for 25 years, I mean, you developed like any other passions, like hockey or something, you know?
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say was when I had walked away for personal reasons, a big part of that was to start that family. And when we did, we relocated to an area that we didn't have a whole lot of exposure, so we could, you know, live a low profile. Because I'll be honest with you, in Pennsylvania, especially in my hometown, by the time I was stepping away, I was, you know, it was everybody knew me, let's say. And you know, I had a local arena and training center there, so I was a local. Everybody knew who I was, and it wasn't a comfortable place to be when you want to lay low and get away from it. So what happened was we ended up going to Florida and settling down in Florida, and we did have our son.
Nice.
And you know, that was the first step. We took a hiatus and had my son.
Nice.
And when we had him, took a different perspective on things a little bit. We waited a little bit, and I looked at what was happening. And at that time, from the time that I had walked away from ECW in Philly on late '96, I guess it was, when I walked away from there, they were just starting to promote down in Florida.
Oh,
and they had run down there in Miami, I believe it was, or West Palm Beach, where I forget where their first taping was or whatever. It was down South Florida, and I knew they'd be there, so I went. You know, been off long enough. Let's go see what's going on. Walk in, and you know, everything that was, you know, a lot of the same boys were there from Philly and Bubba Ray and stuff like that, shooting the shit, and you know. It's one of those things where I was kind of so teased with it to go back. I was ready to go, you know. I mean, I can't be around it without wanting to be in there. You know, it's in my blood.
Yeah.
And you know, the wife at the time, Lady Alexandra, she did not want to go back on the road. She did not want to. You know, she was a mom now. You know, she wanted to start being a mommy and raising our son.
Yeah.
And, you know, what can I say? I got to respect that.
Yeah.
I got to respect that. And so I started, you know, thinking seriously about going back by myself without her. But I know too many guys that have been on the road and paid a severe price in their family life, which is the sacrifice we all make. We know that. But when you have your first child, when we did, it was a time in my life where I knew I would probably not have another. And I wanted to cherish that moment and the many moments that come along with being a new father.
Yeah.
And that became my main focus. So as I did that, I, you know, did some other things. You know, I always happen to know somebody somewhere, you know, and one of the main reasons why we settled in Florida is because I had some friends. And, you know, so did she. And it seemed like a good place. We enjoyed the weather in Florida. That's, you know, we've been around enough places in the world to know where we wanted to go, you know, and settle down. And we agreed on Florida for the sake that we had friends and different people down there. Well, I was very fortunate that I had a good friend that, you know, gave me employment. And, you know, I don't talk a lot about my personal life, but basically I went to work like everybody else. You know, I went to work and had to make a living for my new family without doing anything in the wrestling business because I didn't, you know, I never promoted Florida. I never wrestled in Florida. except for the National Wrestling Federation when we were in Florida. You know,
Sure.
Interesting because that was actually on the table as a step that we were going to make at the time that we walked away.
Wow.
But back in that, I'm talking about back in the NWF days. I was back in the 80s, so
Yeah.
So anyway, we had a goal to have raise a family, and that's what I did. I focused on that, and whenever I focus on anything, I try to be the best at it that I'm capable of being.
Yeah.
Even if it's not, I don't have to be the best in the world. I just need to be the best that I can be, and that's been always my focus with anything I've ever done. Not to be better than anybody, just to be the best that I can be. And I feel like if you're living your life that way, then, that's what God intended. He wanted you to, focus on good stuff and do the right thing. And that's what I try to do. I try to live a, pretty positive lifestyle.
Yeah.
No saint by any means.
Yeah.
But, I try to do the right thing. So, yeah, that's what I did. And,
Awesome.
I had a good career in with what I was doing at the time, and that led to relocating to Texas after about almost 9 years in Florida, and Texas was all new ball game. Again, an area that I had no major exposure or nothing like that, except for when we came. Whatever we did with the National Wrestling Federation in the 80s is where I got to, off of the syndicated TV and because that's basically what we did is the promotion end of it. The guys in the office were selling shows based off of the syndicated TV that they were getting in different markets. And we were bouncing around. I mean, we wrestled in California, we wrestled in Florida, we wrestled in Texas, but we never wrestled there long enough to draw a fan base. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately one of the key things that started to fall apart later on with the National Wrestling Federation. But anyway,
Let me ask.
that's pretty much how I filled my time. I paid absolutely no attention, by the way, to anything that was going on in the wrestling world.
Wow.
Not until about 3-4 years ago. And then, of course, the last couple of years, everybody was at home quarantining, and I had plenty of time to catch up on things, let's say.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I mean, nothing else to do, right?
Everybody had plenty of time to catch up on all their old hobbies or whatever they wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I started paying attention, and I'll tell you what, I mean, when you're broken into the game with some of the best, I believe. I feel those old boys were the best in the business, the best in the world. They were the legends of our game. I mean, there's no better hands to be in to start out with. And when you do it, you do it. You take it very seriously, and I did. And when I seen what was going on in the world of wrestling, when I started paying attention again, I didn't recognize it as the same business, as the same, Yes, there were some moves mixed in there somewhere, but it was kind of confusing to me because all I seen was a bunch of flipping around and jumping and flying and there's nothing wrong with all of that, but if that's all you got, you can't have a high spot. Let me put it to you this way. When you're in the ring and you're doing your thing, you work with your opponent and you wrestle your opponent based on skill, knowledge. Each of you may have certain moves that the other one knows you're going to go for. So, it works out. You can pretty much put two of those old pros in the ring without ever even meeting each other before they step in the square circle, and they're going to have a great freaking match. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, what I was seeing was what I would consider, at the time that I was in there doing, the real thing, the real deal, so to speak, the professional wrestling that I was trained for, when I was in there, what I was watching as far as the newer stuff was a constant high spot.
Yeah.
Where what we did was we worked our asses off and gave you those moments of high spot.
Yeah.
You know? And those high spots are exactly what they're called, high spots. That's where the people are peaking. Oh my God, did you see?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's a high spot, you know?
Yeah.
You don't do that throughout the whole match and have no substance, no story to tell.
Almost like a climax. You get into the climax, and then then there's the little slope that goes back down.
Yeah. It's one major. It's like you said. It's like one premature climax.
Yeah.
That lasts for 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then here comes the next one.
Yeah.
And then the next version of the same.
Yeah, like a wave.
It just I couldn't identify with it.
Yeah.
So I started seeking out workers that were still in there that I could identify with and see how they're adapting.
Yeah.
And the way it looked to me is everybody was trying to push everybody out.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was trying to get rid of the old mentality, the old school work. Get those guys in here that are doing those backflips off a balcony that's not only 20 feet in the air, but maybe 30 feet from the rail, that he's going to be doing a backflip on a guy over the rail. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Why? Why?
Yeah.
Ask yourself, why?
Yeah, like every match too, right? I mean, it's happening.
You know, I could give you prime examples of matches back in the day, like Patterson Slaughter doing a street fight, backyard, anything goes brawl at Madison Square Garden or whatever, and they didn't do anything like that, and they packed the house and they loved it.
Yeah.
What happened?
I
was like in a cryogenic sleep chamber, cryogenic chamber to preserve myself, and they will be back up, and I feel like Rumpelstiltskin.
Yeah, like Austin Powers, remember?
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we're a little out of time, yeah.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, we did a lot of crazy stuff, ECW. But I wish I could have done more in ECW, I'll be honest with you. I always, with talking to Paul and Todd from the beginning of starting to work with them, everything was great. And, I was still waiting, for that big angle to materialize that didn't, and, wasted a lot of time.
Yeah.
At a time when I was trying to make the decision to move forward, which then my push would have been at that point in my career to sign.
Really?
Sign and be able to use the credibility that I would have achieved through that to carry into, take it on the big stage. And, one of the things that an old friend of mine, Rob Russin, was a promoter. He ended up being a big fan of mine. He was in the National Wrestling Federation office, and then he moved on. He was at the AWA, working up there, and did some other stuff over in Europe and stuff like that, working with some people. Anyway, he was a huge fan of mine and always wanted to know if I'd work for him, which any day. So that's one of the reasons why I was at the National Wrestling Federation, is why I stayed as long as I did, was because of Rob. He was in the promotion office. He was the guy that I was, closest to. But, what ended up happening was, what you saw. I mean, in the history book, I would have done a whole lot more, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't under control. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To be a good worker, you can do some crazy stuff and not kill yourself.
Yeah, still be safe.
Now, ECW fans, they wanted you to kill yourself. So we gave them everything we could.
Yeah.
We gave them everything that we could, and, he always said anything I ever posted or anything you ever saw about me online, he always wrote comments praising my work, praising my professionalism, talking about how great of a guy I am, how excellent of a worker I am, how capable I am in the ring and with a microphone, very strong with mic skills. And his only regret was that he didn't pull me in and bring me over to the AWA, because what he ended up doing was I stayed where I was because we had such a, good thing that we were building with the National Wrestling Federation. I wanted to see it through. Yeah. I was a part of that from the very beginning, so I wanted to see it through and see where we could take it. And we had a lot of challenges along the way, but we were working things out. We were getting there, Mm-hmm. TV production went up. Everything was going good. And, that's what you're shooting for. Well, he ended up, along the way, booking, I don't really want to do it just right now.
We catch up at later.
Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman. Yeah. He ended up bringing him over there and getting his start going off from there. We started him in the National Wrestling Federation as a commentator, and once we got him established as a commentator, he was holding the microphone while I was doing all my stuff, and he'd always say to me, he said, man, why aren't you with the big, at the time there was a big three, why aren't you big three, I don't understand one. Well, I don't understand what you're doing. I said, well, wait a minute. Do you want me to do this right? Or do you want me to just jump in that big ocean and just start flailing away and see what happens? Because what I think I'm doing right now is controlling my destiny.
Yeah.
What I'm doing right now is guiding my career. And when I get established with an organization that is continuing to make steps to move forward and grow, I want to see that through, and I want to be a part of the success. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, of course.
That to me is just smart business, and that's what I was doing. And we ended up giving him a shot to be a manager, and we left to manage. Actually, me and DC Drake at the time. We went out, worked a match with the Fantastics. That was his very first on TV appearance. Anywhere for being, Paulie Dangerous.
Yeah.
Kind of together, put our heads together and created that, because at the time there was a movie that had come out with Michael Keaton called Johnny Dangerously. Mm-hmm. And he resembled that character from Michael Keaton when we dressed him the way we did with the, he dressed in the suspenders and the dress shirt and the glasses with the big old phone, And, we did that with the intention of doing more together. Mm-hmm. And then he went and started making his own moves, and I can talk more about a different story that led to that, but that's okay.
Yeah,
we did our thing,
Yeah.
He did his thing. I did my thing up until the time that, we had a part in the company, and I just disappeared. That's what I did. And I was so kind of fed up with the BS politics, not just politics, but the BS politics of what was going on from several different directions of the business. And I kind of seen what was coming. To me, and I'm sure I'm not the only one with this opinion. Somebody had to say this before. I think what happened was the influence from what we were bringing back to the surface, the hardcore stuff, Yeah. We were bringing up the blood and the guts, while Vince was still working on cartoon characters and stuff.
Yeah.
And we were the opposition to that. We were the extreme opposite of that. Yeah. And, everybody was working for the same goal. And I think what happened was, because we did so much crazy stuff, again, without killing ourselves, we did some crazy stuff that really started, being popular with the teenage crowd.
Yeah.
The young generation. And they started just doing the same crazy shit without having a clue what they're doing. And it led to backyard wrestling, which is nothing wrong with. I probably would have done something like that back in the day.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that, it is what it is. I think what happened was that became the norm.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It just, over the years, it degraded and it got more watered down as it went.
Yeah.
And those guys just started flourishing. Like the backyard fans,
Yeah.
And they just that became the new generation.
Yeah.
I'm like,
when I was a kid, Damien, I would get the action figures, and there was a time where it was just the figure itself, but then they were adding in like toilet seats or like trash cans and stuff like that, and like you said, it became the new norm, like hardcore wrestling.
Exactly.
Exactly. Like even my toys even had all the accessories, so you couldn't go anywhere.
I mean, the magic of ECW was the fact that we attracted that blue collar worker that had been forgotten. We attracted that blue collar worker who wanted to see the good stuff from back in the old days, the old school stuff. Mm-hmm. When you had matches like with the Sheik, the original Sheik, Sabu's uncle, and you pair that up with guys like Abdul the Butcher, and you got guys like, back in the day, man, Dick the Bruiser, Bulldog Brower.
Yeah.
These guys did basically the same thing we did with ECW.
Yeah.
We brought that back.
Yeah.
We brought that element back and took it to an extreme level.
Yeah, and
that's the magic of it. And it was time. You captured in a bottle, and that's it. Yeah. It was that time.
Yeah, it was.
And it's evolved into what we see now.
Yeah.
Which is a combination. Because what I've been on a roll with for the past year or two, I've gotten back in the groove, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the ring on and off. I must admit, I've been in the ring on and off for quite some time. I've always stayed in decent shape because I've got my boy in there rolling around, doing some stuff.
Nice.
I mean, he's not a kid anymore. He's 23 now. So.
Wow, that's awesome.
But we did our thing.
Yeah. Damien, let me ask you this. Wrestlers, you alluded to it before, you're traveling the world. What are some of your destination go-to places for food or to unwind for a drink?
Say it one more time.
You have like
destination go-to.
Like go-to for a drink or for some food. I mean, is there like places in the world that you just like? Oh, I'm in New York, I gotta go here. Or if I'm in, Florida,
No. I'll tell you what. I'm very low profile. That's why nobody ever knows where the hell's Damien at? Where's Damien at? I heard that for so many years. And, there was a lot of people when I did finally get back online. They didn't know if I died or what. They're like, wow. Damien Kane? Are you really Damien Kane?
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's me. And it's like, where you been, man? Goddamn. With all that. Once you get to the end of that 25-year period of time, if you haven't done anything that long, there isn't a wrestling fan alive in the new generation that knows who the hell you're talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if you're out of the limelight for 6 months, they start forgetting. If you're out of the limelight a year, I think they already forgot.
Yeah.
You take 20 to 25 years, and it's like a whole new beginning.
Yeah.
And I want to be ready to be able to go at it, in the ring, in a support role if they need, anything for management. I hate to use that word manager, but it is what it is. Okay, so I won't be a special counsel or I won't be an advocate, but I can be maybe I can be an advisor.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Just a coach. I'm not the coach. The coach is already player coach.
Yeah, no, that works. I mean, you got so many wrestlers now, like Tully and Jake. I mean, these guys were some big names, and sometimes it's hard for me to see them as like managers. But then I'm like, damn, these guys are still pretty good at like being like Arn Anderson. You got people who could do both. Like you could step into the ring. You could be a manager. I mean. And it's pretty cool when you see somebody like your stature. I mean, I always wondered why, how does that come about? Did you want to be a manager at first, like when you were watching like the Grand Wizard and Freddie, or was it just in the ring?
education, and at that period of time, we're talking about the trifecta. You're talking about Albano and Blassie and the Grand Wizard, man. What better teachers can you learn? And I'm sitting behind the scenes watching them do their thing, you know?
Yeah.
And,
hello?
I'm going to tell you right now. And I'm like, wow, yeah, that's me, man, you know? Mm-hmm. I got to do that. So it's not just that I didn't want to be a manager necessarily, but I wanted to be as good with a microphone. Yeah. Because those are the guys that were doing all the talking for all the other guys. Like, you know, George the Animal Steele. you know?
Yeah.
And he didn't say a word for the longest time. It was all about, you know, the manager carrying it, you know, either the Grand Wizard or whatever, you know. Mm-hmm. But, again, since that was my training, that's what I developed quite a bit of skill with that. And when they did the mock tryouts to see who was going to be able to work the circuit with the guys that were breaking away, you know, the IWF, International Wrestling Federation, they did the interviews, you know, and when I got my chance to go up for the interview, a few guys had already talked, and, you know, I was next. And I went up. Keep in mind, I wasn't worried about what anybody else was. I was sitting in the back away from everything. I'm very private, very private. And I should sit back in my then wife, my first wife, actually was back there in the gym, sitting with one of two pet Capuchin monkeys that we happened to own.
Wow. You got monkeys?
Capuchin monkey, yeah. They used to call them organ grinder monkeys back in the day, long time ago. They'd be the monkeys that would be standing in a street corner with a little outfit on and a flat top hat with a cup, collecting coins, doing little tricks while the guy was standing there with a little accordion or something. They call him an organ grinder monkey.
Oh my god! Wait, did this inspire the Bonzo character, or did you this just after?
I was just getting to that. Yeah, she was back there and the monkey's very quiet. You know what I mean? Doesn't make any noise or anything. And she was just sitting back there, they were relaxing. When I had done my first interview, nobody knew that they were back there. I was, like I said, it was a dark corner in the back away from everybody else.
Oh my god!
I didn't want it to distract anybody, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, I did my thing, and I knew how to kick it in. I knew how to hit a high spot, and I knew how to wrap it up from watching the pros, man.
Yeah.
And they were doing the same thing. They're counting me down when it's time to go. You know, when it's time to start counting down, last 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, cut, right? The whole 9 yards. And I was ready. And when I did my thing, I went from a speaking voice to my voice. If I was wrestling, I'd be, this is me, you know?
Yeah.
And I turned it on. And when I turned it on, everybody that was sitting around arguing also sat up, paid attention, and kind of started watching what I was doing. And, I mean, we had a commentator there, Chris Clausen. We had a commentator, and he was holding the microphone and doing it just like we were taping TV. And when I wrapped it up on cue and everything came to a head, you know, Walter was like, that's what I'm about. That's what I'm talking about. And he told all the other guys, pay attention. That's what I'm talking about. That was awesome. You know, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I go back and sit down. Guys come up, and now he's kind of helping them, critiquing them and stuff. I go back and sit down, and I'm playing with the monkey back there, just sitting quiet with the wife. And one of the guys seen the monkey and said something about it to Walter. And he looked over his shoulder, he looked back, and he said, "Hey, where's the monkey?" I showed him the monkey. I said, it's just our little pet. Just kind of staying quiet. Oh, bring it over here. Is it trained to do anything?
Oh my god.
No, we don't train it. It's more like our little baby. It's just, you know, it's like a little baby that never grows up.
Yeah.
But it's not trained to do anything. I said, it does have a peculiar habit, though. It had a little, we kept a little collar on it with a little 2 or 3 inch lead chain, you know, with a ring on the end.
Yeah.
And we would just put our finger through that, and she'd just stay on our arm, right there in the crease of our arm. And she, she was quite content there, or up on our shoulder on a leash or whatever,
Yeah.
But I said, whenever we point at anything, she thinks she has to attack it.
Oh, boy.
He said, really? I said, yeah, let me show you. And as I'm talking just in a regular voice, I'm just talking and talking. I start pointing at him, and the monkey all of a sudden...
Oh, my God.
She thinks she's got to attack. And actually, I got her under control with the lead chain on my finger, so she can't go nowhere. She can't get on or nothing, but she's acting like she's trying to attack. And he said, come on, bring that monkey up here. We're going to do another one. Give me another, whatever, 2 minutes, 1 minute, whatever. And let's see, do it with the monkey. And I'm like, okay. So I stood up there with the monkey. I'm on. The commentator, he opened it up first, and I walked in. Monkey's on my arm. Everything's calm, cool, collected, and I started doing my thing. I kind of have a habit of doing that. I kind of jump right in there. When I see the time's right, I just run with it. So the commentator don't have to worry about doing too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I do my thing. And when I do my thing, as soon as I start cranking it up, he's fine until I get in, hit my high spot in the promo, and bam, I'm pointing. At the same time, I'm intense. The monkey's going off. Everything's going crazy. You got me. I tell you something, guys. Doing my thing, and the monkey, and he's looking like petrified. And we wrapped it up right on cue. Boom. And Walter laughed his ass off and said, "Yes, yes, yes."
Wow. That's amazing. When you're getting the yes from Killer, that's pretty amazing.
That's where the name came from. He said, you got to use that. He said, that's a great gimmick.
Oh, my God.
He said, what the hell was the name of that movie? It was Ronald Reagan had a monkey in it. And somebody said Bonzo. That time for Bonzo. Bonzo, that's it. Bonzo. That's going to be your name. Bonzo, Monkey Man.
Wow, that's amazing. That's funny.
I'm like, oh, man. I'll have to send you a picture and show you. Bleach blonde hair, tie-dyed. It was like a cross between a Dusty Rhodes, because I wasn't a bodybuilder type like Superstar Billy Graham, but it was a combination of like Mike's style from both of those guys. They were imitating each other anyway, and it's one of those things,
That's funny.
I just kind of fell into that, along with the mix of the trifecta for whatever it took. I pulled a little something from everybody, I guess. I had the bleach blonde hair, I had the tie-dye stuff, I had the glitz and the glamour, sunglasses, I'm a big daddy. We're going to do it my way now, This
that's
is
awesome.
what we're talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And when he's seen the mic skills with the monkey, it put me in a real good position.
Yes.
It really did.
It really did.
It put me in a
like
position where they were using me on all the dates. So all the tour, everything that they were trying to do during that tour, trying to make a mark. The IWF stuff, it put me in a really good spot.
Yeah.
I was an up and downer. Let's say that. I wasn't I didn't start out at the bottom of the heap. I was in the middle somewhere. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was in that middle mix of guys that you never knew. But the gimmick was catchy, and it got me over. And, the rest, I guess, as they say, you know how it is.
Yeah.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
But, very fortunate when I started out. And then I because of the mic skills and the gimmick, they needed certain guys to, I didn't start managing right after that, but not long afterwards, there was a need for somebody to do talking for one of the bigger guys, and I became that guy to do his talking and still doing my thing, but it got to be where I was getting to be so popular as a manager, the combination was working.
Yeah.
And that combination ended up being me and DC Drake.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Now, Damien, I have two last questions for you. The first one is, now that you're back in the game, do you like doing the conventions? Do you want to do more conventions? Are you trying to do the indie circuit and see what's out there? I mean, do you want to see the fans?
Yeah, oh, of course I do. Of course I do. The fans, everything I've ever done has been for the fans. I mean, without the fans, there is no purpose. So the fan has to be the one that proves of what you do. They have to, go home happy, or they ain't coming back for sure. But that's the biggest thing to me, the fans, and I try to interact with the fans as much as possible online. I do have a lot of fans that DM me, and I try to keep conversation going with them, and I take a little bit of time and spend with them, and they appreciate it. They always tell me how much they really appreciate that interaction with the fans. And what happened was I made up my mind after all the bad stuff that was going on in the world in general. Everything was shut down. Nobody was doing nothing. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm sitting there seeing the world come to an end, right? And I'm looking at it, and I'm saying, you know what? This is serious stuff. If I'm ever gonna do anything in the wrestling business again, I need to do it now. Because who knows if there's gonna be it tomorrow. I mean, we have the world that we live in. I don't claim to be part of it. I have a tattoo that claims the states not of this world. And I don't, I have my personal beliefs, spiritual beliefs. I have my personal beliefs when it comes to politics, and I don't try to make statements that I can, that's not what I'm here for. You don't want to hear politics coming from a professional wrestler any more than you do a singer or anybody else. Do your job. Don't tell me what you think. Just do your job. And that's what I try to do. But I can tell you that, I figured if I'm going to do this, I got to do it. Now, all the time that I was hibernating, so to speak, and quarantining, I just tried to stay in shape, because I have, a pretty extensive gym at the house. And, I was doing my thing, working out, trying to watch what I was eating and working out. And I've done that pretty much consistently ever since I stepped away from the game. And, you go through periods where you let it go for a while, but then you get back on track because you look yourself in the mirror and say, what the hell am I doing? So you get back in shape. But I never tried to be a bodybuilder or a, big powerlifter guy. I am me, I just want to be in the best condition I can put myself in to feel confident in what I do in a professional wrestling world. I'm confident in the ability that was instilled in me from the great people that I ended up being trained with and by and working with as a start in the business. Can you imagine being in the ring with those great guys who are helping you look good?
Yeah.
I mean, that is a surreal experience to have Manuel Soto in the ring with me, helping me make myself look good. He's helping me look good,
It's crazy,
it's
right?
It's just one of those things. And like I said, it's the best in the world. I couldn't ask for a better start.
Yeah.
So, when you take all of that, you try to live up to it. You try to look at that standard that you establish for yourself. Sometimes I'm quite a perfectionist, it's one of those things. I wanted to say, Walter was a big stickler on details. I mean, if you were doing a headlock, it wasn't just you turn into no, he did it right. You did it with the right technique. If your grip was the wrong direction, he would stop you in the middle of what you're doing and get up in the ring and show you why you do it the other way. And, he was a stickler for those details, and I'm so grateful for that because that keeps the bad habits from starting. You're focused on trying to perfect what you're learning, that it becomes ingrained in you to do it a certain way. And what I see going on today is it's a free-for-all. It's a free-for-all. There's no methodology, let's put it that way. It's just flip-flop, go fly, and let's, go for 10 finishes and kick out. You know, I mean, it's such a waste. I think it's such a waste. You get so much more mileage out of your body, out of what you're doing and the way you're going about it. And one of the things I'm grateful for, and I don't know that I had anything to do with influence anybody making decisions in the big guys, but I can tell you that I've been on a campaign to bring back old school, you know? That's where the good stuff's at. It's where the good stuff's at. It's where the legends were made, for Christ's sake. The legends were made from old school. Bring back old school. And everybody in the game knows what I'm talking about.
You know,
I didn't say wipe the slate clean and go back to walking, talking, 1, 2, 3, go. No. This isn't a dance competition. We don't. You know, you're going in there to do justice to your craft, and to do that with a sense of professionalism. I have to give all credit where credit's due. Today's athletes, compared to the condition that most of the guys stayed in the old school that I'm talking about, you know, they're tremendous athletes, no doubt about it.
Old school's cool.
You know, yes, exactly. And when you can take guys like Blackwell, who can do a drop kick as well as anybody, Bam Bam Bigelow, you know, you can slide, throw a drop kick at you on command. Scott was a hell of a work, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, what can I say? It's one of those things where I made up my mind I'm going to do this, so I put myself in a position to be ready to do it.
Yeah.
And when I feel completely comfortable, I'm going to throw myself out there. But I'll tell you what I did last year. I put the word out because several of the vendors and bookers and promoters had always sent me stuff, personal messages asking if I would be willing to do personal appearances. And I declined. I politely declined. And that's when I was fresh out of the game, you know. And that continued for like years, and then it started slowing down. But I still periodically would get something when somebody sees that I'm active, and they say, "Hey, man, what are you charging for? Would you do a meet and greet? Blah blah blah." So I said, "Let me do this strategically." I said, first of all, I got to take the temperature and the pulse of the people, and let's see if I even have a foundation to launch from. Right? So I said, let me get out there and see how many of my fans are left from the 80s. You know, I mean, we're going back that far, and I don't know, because let's be realistic. The time keeps on ticking for all of us. And, you know, fans that were fans then may not be with us anymore. A lot of them have, you know, definitely in their elder years. So anybody under, you know, 50, and anybody under 50, I don't think would even have a clue. You know, and I even said that on the one interview. I said, you know, you ask anybody, any wrestling fan today, who's Damien Kane? They don't know. They don't know who you talking about. A lot of the guys don't know. You know.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I understand. I'm not stupid. I was quiet for 25 freaking years. That's a lifetime.
Yeah.
That's a lifetime.
It's a long time.
That means people have had careers and come and go in that time, you know?
Yeah.
So here I am telling you that I'm ready and to step in and do what I got to do to reclaim my position, you know, reclaim my stake in my profession. You know, and by doing that, I want to be prepared to handle anything, but I don't want to jump in the ring and just jump on every indie that's willing to bring me in, because I can tell you that's not going to get me anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, I don't necessarily want to just blindly take bookings and just, you know, I'm not starting. I'm starting back.
Yeah, it's a whole different game, right?
So what I decided to do was make some calls and find out from some of the boys that are still out there doing a lot of this stuff. And I asked them, I said, who can I trust? Because let's face it, nobody that was promoting then, like Dennis Corluzzo and stuff like that, he's gone, you know. Yeah. Well, his protege, Eric Sims, you know.
Yeah.
He's seen all the stuff from the 80s. He was around. He was there. He knows. So I went ahead and I checked with somebody. I said, how's Eric Sims? Is he, you know, a straight shooter? He said, oh, yeah. Yeah, very professional. Very professional. So I'm like, okay. So he's one of the good ones. I said, yep. I said, all right, that'll work for me. That's all I needed to know. Got in touch with Eric Sims after he had sent me several different times, you know, asking me if I'd ever be interested to let him know. Yeah. So I talked to him and told him what I would want him to do, and we set up that string of dates last year with me and Drake and Abdullah. Mm-hmm. And his vision was to bring back and take it all the way back to the 80s.
Yeah.
That's why Abdullah and Drake were with me. But I had to, get Drake to come along because he didn't really want anything to do with it anymore. He'd been out of it for a long time too, and he had a bad taste in his mouth or some of the same bullshit politics I was talking about. But I just recognized it sooner and seen what was coming. That's all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Is that
Is
that like a hard thing to do? I mean, you said you pulled him out of it. I mean, he's been out of it just as long as you've been in. He like you said. I mean, he has a family. He has probably got like regular normal day things too. I mean, was it really that hard, or how long did how long did it take for you to get him to be comfortable with maybe the idea of doing that?
The idea of doing what now?
Like going back out there and meeting fans.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to him and I told him my situation. I said, "Listen, man," I told him the whole story, and I said, "You're coming to me, after I checked everybody out. I'm coming to you knowing that you're a straight shooter. That's what I'm looking for." I told him what I was looking for, and he told me what he was thinking, and I said, "Well, you're the guy paying the bill, so let's go ahead and do it your way."
Yeah.
But I think it would be a better idea, since the Icons show was right in the middle, smack dab in the middle of what we were doing that weekend. I honestly had the intent to work the meet and greets and be there for the event that night with Battleground. Is it Battleground? Who's running that now?
Yeah, there's a Battleground company, and there's also there's a couple different people that run that ECW arena.
I think the event that I was there for, Rob Feinstein.
Yeah, he does the Battlegrounds and the Icons of Wrestling.
Yeah, and when Eric was talking to me, I'm thinking, he was on length as me, knowing that ECW being the last thing that I did before walking away, that would be your best shot at promoting to those fans. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Pushing me back into that clique, so to speak. That niche, the ECW niche. Mm-hmm. And why would you bring me to the ECW arena where I walked out of 25 years ago to walk back into this arena on a day that there's going to be an event here, do the Icons convention and do the event that night? That was what I thought we were doing. Well, that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. That didn't happen. I found out when we got further into it, got closer to the date, that people started asking, "Are you going to be wrestling, or what are you going to be?" I said, honestly, I don't know yet, because I didn't worry about those details. We'll figure that out later. But yes, I'm going to be there. So a lot of people were wondering if I was going to be there wrestling, and I ended up no. And I still to this day don't know why I wasn't with the ECW guys right from that start. Mm. Right from that start, because that would have been a natural fit, and everybody would have said, "Oh yeah," because I'll be honest with you, Paul limited what I did so much to the extent that even everybody has all the collections and stuff. You have to look for it, Yeah. You have to look for it. He minimized me as much as possible, and that's a lot of the problems that I have.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
A lot of the things he wasted the last almost 2 years of a career that I walked away from because I seen what was coming, and there was no way I was going to be involved in that game with the way he was going with the booking end of it. Sure. And that surprised me, because back in the day, 10 years before that, I was all gung-ho, and I was, gave him anything that I could do to influence his start in the business. I did. We were very close at the time. He called me a couple of times a week to see what was coming up, what we were doing. As a photographer, he did that. Mm-hmm. And we started him doing our programs for that reason, because he was already freelancing for magazines and stuff. So we had that going on already, so he was in the circle, so to speak, and wanted to do something in front of the cameras, and we needed to upgrade our commentary end of it. our announcers, we were doing okay, but we can always improve. Everybody can improve. So we gave him a shot, and he could do it. He was a student of the game, a historian. He held his own, and we actually we could throw it at him by himself and let him run it if we needed to. And that's what we needed. We needed that ace in the hole on that end of it. And after he did that for a while, he was getting so, it was getting in his blood. He was standing in between me and Abdullah while I'm doing a crazy deal or something, or me and Drake doing a crazy deal with foam coming out of his mouth, or eating raw steak or something, and he's sitting there and you can see, Jesus, and then he's coming to me, he said, man, he said, I don't know why you're not with the bigger guys, man. What are you doing? I said, this is my control, my destiny, and I told him how to do it. I said, I've come this far with this. I've pretty much been a part of this since the beginning. I want to see it through. So, he understood that, and, that didn't change his goals. That didn't mean anything to him. He still wanted to do stuff. So, he wanted to take the next step and be a manager, like I was saying before. Yeah. And when we did that, it was bing, bang, boom before he started making some waves and getting established. And the rest is history, right? Yeah. I disappear and he moves on. Yeah. And that's part of the heat that I have with him is over the way he handled the situation. Mm-hmm. He was in a position because you got to understand something. I had my own arena and training center going in Reading. Yeah. In Reading, Pennsylvania. I had my own arena, Body Slams training center, arena and training center, and professional wrestling arena and training center. Mm-hmm. And we used to run shows there on a regular basis. AWF, All-Star Wrestling Federation, we were giving them pretty much everybody that was available to us. Mm-hmm. We were giving good talent to the people, and I was breeding good talent out of the gym. Mm-hmm. And the combination it was doing really well. From the time we started running, we had a guerrilla crew that pushed on the street crews that, we promoted the hell out of it to make sure that we were known. And once they knew we were there, they were lining up around the box, just like ECW Arena. Mm-hmm. Just the same thing, only I was doing it in Reading, and I was staying low key. I wasn't going for any big exposure. I was just doing it locally to build a good foundation, kind of like the Von Erichs in Texas. I was looking to establish that place to go to, man. Let's go to the arena. Let's go to the Body Slams arena, man. It's Friday night. It's Saturday night, whatever, And that's what I wanted for the local people. That's my way of giving back to my local community of fans something that they have that is unique. You can come here and see the same people doing the same thing, right, and you're right on top of them. There wasn't a bad seat in the house. It was a small place. So to fill it didn't take thousands of dollars of promotion, and it would have been a perfect spot. And I had built it up to the point where we had our following established locally, and everything was going great. Yeah. And, unfortunately, I have to say that now, unfortunately, I made a deal that, one of the guys that I knew that was working down there on Eastern stuff with Todd had sent up, he had come up because he knew where I was at to talk to me on Todd's behalf and say that he was in the middle of making some decisions on making some changes. And, I said, okay, well, what's that have to do with me? He's like, you got to, you got to see what's going on, man. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? He's like, well, he's got it in government there, and wanting to make a change in that end of it. And, he wants you to, wants to know if you'd be interested in talking to him. I said, sure. So I got in touch with Todd and talked to him about coming down to meet with him. Went down to Philly, met with him. He knew I had my place up there going and told me the same thing that the other guy said. And I said, okay, let me see what I can work out. I said, but yeah. He said, so, you worked with Paul back, in National Wrestling Federation back in the 80s and stuff, so you guys all work great together. I said, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And Here we go. First time I walk in the back room, and they were on their way out when I went down to meet Todd when they were running the show. Paul and Eddie Gilbert were on the way out at the end of the night, and I was they had told somebody to usher me in from outside. I was waiting for the event to end, and I came in, and we crossed paths, and he dropped his pants up. Damien Kane, oh my God, where you been? Oh, he made a big production about me. Yeah. Oh my God! Call me. You should have my number. Call me. And then they headed out. And I'm like, everybody in the locker room was looking at me, what the hell is that? And I just went in and talked to Todd and said, listen, man, it looks like you got a bunch of stuff going on, and you don't have a lot of time right now to finish talking about things, so why don't we just set something up for whatever you want to do? Call me. I'll come down on the show that I'm booked at, and we'll talk about it. And I said, I made a couple of conditions, of what I was looking for, stuff like that. So, we started out. And every indication, everything was going to be like old times. Everything was going to be great, Mm-hmm. He put me over to the locker room like you wouldn't believe,
Wow.
And here we are. And and he brings me in, and he's got me in there in a circle and talking about some ideas and what do you think, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sounds good. And that's when they were making that transition to Extreme. Mm-hmm. And did the transition and blah 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 and all that stuff. Well, here I am, right? Mm-hmm. And I had two guys I was trying to develop a package with that had already started working. Mm-hmm. Got in touch with me. That had a good look to them, mm-hmm. and it was something that would be close to my look. So we did a package and called it Bad Crew. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember any of that. But what we did was he said, I'll use your guys. He said, bring them down, let's do this thing. And to these guys, this was their big break, Yeah. To these guys, this was going to be the first time they're getting some TV like with ECW. Are you kidding me? This is the hot thing right now, and here we are.
It's pretty impressive.
And I think that they just, I don't know, everybody gets nervous, I guess, or something. I don't know, but they were out there with the Dudleys, and, to the experienced eye, you can see a couple of missteps, and, they weren't real confident in the guys and didn't want to really use them. And I said, listen, why don't we do something easy then, man? It depends on what you want to accomplish, because you have to understand, I'm still running and ready. The All-Star Wrestling Federation, Body Slams Arena and everything still exists. So we're doing this in Philly, an hour away or whatever. And, I don't want it to be a conflict of interest. So I'm working down there, try to work a couple of my guys in with it. Lady Alexander's with me. So I make a public statement. And I get, I can send you all this stuff. I have a good collection of things. Wow. And I issued this statement through the news and made everybody aware of the situation and thanking all of the fans that have been supportive of the Body Slams Arena. We are now also working involved with the Extreme Championship Wrestling, ECW. But I don't want you guys to worry. The All-Star Wrestling, I explained everything to the public so they knew what was going on. Because I didn't want an AWF fan stumbling into an ECW show expecting the same thing. Yeah. It's not going to be the same. So I explained in the newsprint that we were still giving you both traditional professional wrestling with the All-Star Wrestling Federation and all of your favorite stars, and also opposite that, Extreme Championship Wrestling events out of the same arena. So one weekend I'd run the AWF, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, boom, ECW. 2 or 3 weeks later, AWF. 2 or 3 weeks later, depending on the time of the year and stuff, And we were able to do just fine with that until what I would consider enough time going by to kind of come to a head with it, and we ended up parting company. And it was, like I said, it was at a time when I seen the writing on the wall of what was coming.
Yeah.
And I didn't want really to be a part of that chaos that ensued. It got to the point where there was craziness. There was some craziness going on, not just with the ECW stuff. I'm talking about with all of the watered down stuff that was starting to manifest in the rest of the market.
Yeah.
And I did what I thought was the right thing for me personally. I wasn't thinking about my career at that point. I just wanted to walk away from the bullshit, so to speak, and go ahead and start that family, and that's what we did. And I'll tell you the statement that got me to do it. Lady Alexandra and myself had talked many times about future plans.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where, here we go. You want to eventually have a baby? Sure. I always just wanted a boy. I always wanted my boy. And she's like, yeah, just push. What you don't understand is,
I'm sorry?
Middle of your career, doing what we do, and just throw a wrench in the gears, you try to kind of ride what you're doing out and maybe plan it for the good time where we can, strategically start a family.
Yeah.
And, I'm a big guy with that. Strategy on how you're going to do something to make it work before you jump in is the first step. But you got to have that plan first. So that's what I did. And I put it off. Well, here we are. And she says to me, after that night that I had a conversation with Paul one-on-one and decided that I was, pretty much walking away. The thing that got me to do it was the comment from her saying, keep in mind, she's a little younger than me.
Yeah.
So she says, what do you think? Now'd be a good time to have that job. I said, she said, think about it. How old do you want to be by the time you have that child? And you want to be able to raise him, and you want to be able to play football with him when he's a teenager in high school and stuff like that. Yeah. She said, think about it. If we had a baby today, you'd damn near be a senior citizen until you'd be grown. I was like, It kind of like drove a stake in my heart.
Yeah.
It's like, you got a point. I mean, I could keep pedaling out there in the game and keep busting myself up and keep, doing my thing. And that's what we do, man. And I got no problem doing that. It's what I do. It's in my blood,
Yeah.
And I did that longer than anyway, it's just one of the things that I didn't see myself walking away from permanently.
Yeah.
I looked at it as, okay, let's take a hiatus, because at the time, to be honest with you, there was pre-promotion, the magazine guys like Bill Apter, George Napolitano, they always knew kind of what was coming.
Yeah.
But, by rumors and guys in the office and tips that they get, So they try to get a jump on it, because by the time the two meet up, the magazine, prepping it, taking the shots, laying out the story, everything that's involved with making a magazine, you've got some delay time from the time something's actually going on today. So they try to get ahead of the curve. Yeah. And they knew that there was talk about the fact that me and Lady Alexandra being working together all the time, she was there for me or whatever. And it's one of those things where there's mixed stuff in the air, Talk was going on about different mixed tag team stuff, mixed husband-wife teams, whatever. And just like it's going on right now with Edge and,
Yeah.
Anyway, what we did was we said, okay, I was looking to take a hiatus, maybe a year and a half. Let's have this baby. Let's get established, and then let's pick these pieces up and keep rolling with it and not really miss that much of a beat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
and utilize that momentum that we had established, because at the time, like I said, there was some things going on, talk about mixed tag team stuff, and all of a sudden, George Napolitano and Bill Apter wanted me to come to them. So Bill had me and Jenny's her name, go down and do some shoots, photo shoots and location stuff and office stuff there at the publishing company. And, shot a picture of, because the talk was Skip and Sonny had been established in WWF.
Yeah.
Well, here comes Damien Kane and Lady Alexandra. There was talk about possible bringing us in and doing something.
Yeah.
Well, they published that. And I even have a shot of me sitting in the office going, with the stacks of magazines all over the office and stuff,
Yeah.
And I'm looking at a magazine and it's talking about Sonny and what's her name? Jenny's standing over my shoulder looking at a picture of Sonny, putting her finger in her mouth like gagging me with a spoon, looking at Sonny's picture. And I'm sitting there tearing the other magazine up, this bullshit, And the whole thing was to lay the groundwork for fans to see that connection and let's see what it might play out to,
Yeah.
And they both did the same thing, only Bill kind of got the jump on that part of it and did that angle, that I just talked about, where George more or less was looking to get as much footage, as much, and many pictures as he could capture of us in the New York area. So that's he had a different idea, but they both knew that there was talk, and we just never did it. We just never pursued it. We never went back, because after that year and a half went by, well, we were still working on having that baby, and we ended up having the baby, and then another year or two go by, and I'm like, okay, let's get back to work. Let's get back to work, because at that time, you got to understand something. At that time, when we first walked away, I went down to Florida, got a place in Florida, and we were loving life. Yeah. Be honest with you, I was living pretty good. Down in Florida, we had a nice place. Beach was right there. I mean, we were loving it. So for a little while, I didn't do anything. Well, whatever money you have when you do nothing, when you have no cash flow coming in because you're not working any dates and not doing anything.
Dwindles, right?
That money goes quick.
Yeah, I know.
So I had a little nest egg, but I was eating that up. So I said, we need to get back to work. And she's like, well, I don't really want to do it anymore. I said, really? Why? What are you talking about? I mean, we were at a crucial point that I think, basically in our prime. Now's not the time to just, blow it off completely. You know what I mean? We've been off for a little while. We need to get reestablished. You know what I mean? I'm a businessman.
Yeah.
And, she didn't want to do it. She didn't want to do the road stuff. She didn't want to be, that focal point in the spotlight all the time. Constantly people looking at you while you're eating because they recognize you from something, It's just one of the things. She was never real comfortable in front of the cameras. She was scared to death of saying anything. Yeah. So what we did was plain and simple. For, 10 years? Almost 10 years that we were together working stuff. She never said a word.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
I lied. She said a few words. The few words that she said was we shot a promo for Paul. Yeah. And it was about, when I first came in, the question, who's Damien Kane? Who's Damien Kane? Well, I said, I was doing a promo, and I started out that way. I said, who's Damien Kane? Who's Damien Kane? What do you mean, who's Damien Kane? You ever hear anybody say, who's Damien Kane? She's like, well, yeah. I said, well, let me tell you something. I'll tell you who Damien Kane is. And I took over,
Yeah.
She never had to worry about it. And she knew that. I told her, I said, you never have to worry about being in a situation you're uncomfortable with. I will take care of you. And we did. And
made it work.
regardless of how it came across out in front of the people, we were like, you know, kind of like the Bonnie and Clyde of, you know, we were
a real team.
We were an item. You know, we were together. I had her back. She knew that. She had my back.
That's
I knew that.
That's how teams work, right?
That's how it works, you know.
Yeah.
But, we never went back. And we just never went back because I decided I didn't want to do it alone because and leave my family behind. You know, I didn't want to leave my new, you know, my son and
your life.
do anything, even for long weekends, you know, even for a 3-4 day week. I don't want to do that. I didn't want to do that.
Sure.
So I didn't certainly want to jump back into the mix of stuff that I had been out of touch with for, by that time, a couple of years. And I'm looking at what's going on, and I'm like, man, what's happening in this business? Oh, God, man, it's not the same, man. You know, it's just not. It's not. It is and it isn't. You know, it's one of those things that's hard to put into the exact words. It's both, but it's more watered down, unnecessary stuff. You know, that is necessary in my opinion. And I believe that a good old school worker can get in the ring with almost anybody and be able to control, you know, enough so that you can tame that down and give them an old school match. And give them an old school match, and there's going to be just as much action and excitement, and there's going to be just as much, you know, if you want something extreme, I'll give it to you. I have no problem doing that. I was hardcore before hardcore was cool. Became a catchphrase as it related to me because it's true. National Wrestling Federation, we started going that route. We started going that hardcore route, and fans are starting to eat it up. And one of the biggest attractions we had going on that end of it was Bruiser Brody and Abdul the Butcher and myself and DC Dre getting involved with those guys. Steel cage matches, either Brody and Abby together, or you know, Brody and Abby in the match, and I'd be managing Abby, or you know, we did a thing with a steel cage and led up to a steel cage match through dual strongbow, and Brody coming in to, you know, do a run-in and build an angle and build a little feud, and culminated with a steel cage match and took that everywhere for a while. Anyway, we were doing that, you know. We were, and promoters that I worked for before that, a couple of times they had pulled me aside and said, listen, man, your work's great. He said, but I think some of it's a little too harsh for a family crowd, you know, so just tame it down a little bit. It was I had an edge to everything I did, you know, because I started, you know, coming into my own, so to speak. And, you know, what can I say? It is what it is. And they always told me, man, you're too hardcore for what I'm doing here. You're too hardcore for this stuff. Tame it down. So I did. I tame it down for the guys that needed me to tame it down, and I turn it up for the guys that wanted me to turn it up. I could give you anything you want. Just tell me what you want, and I'll do it in a way that seems effortless. You know what I mean? If you want, you know, something by the rules, you want somebody to go in there and just be a guy in a corner, stand there, you can tell me what you want. If you're giving me some freedom and let me get some heat for my guy and do my stuff, I'll show you, you know, I'll give you a better example of what I can do. And that was always to my advantage, because people always want to see the good stuff, you know? They always want to see the good stuff. So they, when they see somebody doing something, what you would consider maybe out of the ordinary, they're into it, you know? And I always seem to have a way of finding that button and pushing it. I was always very fortunate with the people. I always seemed to know how to get heat when I needed to get heat. Or, you know, you're a crowd psychologist out there. And you have to know the feel of the crowd and work with it.
And for those who don't know, they can look up Damien Kane matches on YouTube or on Google, and you'll see exactly what you're talking about. Because you like you said, I mean, you can be as technical, you can be as hardcore as anybody can be, and it really shows. You know, like you said, like with Killer Kowalski really training you to really give you the skills.
Well, I can tell you that one of the things that Paul put me out there to do was to open up the show of their first nationwide taping. And, you know, they had me interrupt Joey Styles' intro and just walk into the ring and take over and tell them that now, since we're nationwide, blah, 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 it's out there floating around if you can find it. But, that I'm now not going to be just a manager. I'm going to show the world that I can wrestle, too. Nobody knew by that time. They only saw me as a manager.
Yeah.
The guys in the 80s saw me wrestle, but a lot of that's been forgotten, and now I've been managing for quite some time, and I always seem to be in somebody's corner, so they look at me as a manager, and I'm letting people know I want to be a wrestler,
Yeah.
and I don't care who you got scheduled, but bring them out. Well, they send out El Puerto Riqueño and introduce myself saying, son, I mean you no disrespect, and I just took over on them, Bing, bang, boom, over the top rope, face bump on the floor, because smash his face on the guardrail, whatever. So I said, obviously he had somebody to wrestle, so whoever he is, get your ass out here, because the Godfather of Extreme is going to kick your ass, Yeah. Well, here comes Mikey Whipwreck.
Yeah.
Bum, dum, bum, we do our thing and did it exactly as Paul wanted. But during that little exchange between me and El Puerto Riqueño and me and Mikey Whipwreck, it gave the people in that arena the first chance to see me actually do something.
Yeah.
Besides talking cheap shit, Yeah. So I come out and I actually did a little something, and they're like, whoa, wait a minute, Damien Kane can actually wrestle. I was like, no shit. And that's what I'm telling you, So when I worked my deal with Mikey and I threw a slingshot suplex in on it, and Joey's on the mic, and he's like, slingshot, suplex, cover, damn, Damien Kane can wrestle. Yeah, no shit.
Yeah. And it's pretty impressive. I mean, and it speaks a lot about you because you can talk, you can wrestle, you talk people into the seats, you train. I mean,
And I'm not afraid of, I'm not afraid of putting my I'll lay it down out there, I'll get in the ring and I'll say, I don't care who you are in the back. Come on out, because I'm going to give you an old school ass whooping one way or the other. It don't matter to me. Bring it on out, brother.
Yeah, and it's really, it's funny because the word legend sometimes gets overplayed or overused, but in this case, I mean, you really are one of those living legends, and people, I'm sure, like, I like to come, I hope you come back to Jersey. I'd like to see you. I'd like to actually meet you one day, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for you. I like to keep this close to the chest. I'm going to watch what you're doing and see what happens over
anytime you want to update, you just let me know, and I'll let you know how things are going. I just don't want to jump in that pool.
Oh yeah, of course.
Indie shows, you can find a show everywhere. Everywhere there's something going on. I don't want to do that. I would rather have a strategic approach to doing that with an organization that could use my services to help them grow or help them convert back to some of this old school stuff that I profess. I can show you how it can work. So bring me in, let me show you, and let's do some stuff. And that's really what I'm doing. I'm strategically looking for the right guys that are already working in that same direction, that have the same mindset. And there's a few here in Texas that I'm looking real close at. And I've been in contact with 2 of them, and we'll see what happens. We'll see. And as soon as I get, and the reason why I say Texas is because I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm in Texas, and it makes no sense to be having to travel all the way to the East Coast, even though that's where my bread and butter.
Yeah.
At the same time, I have to be mindful of the fact that travel is unpredictable, and
sure.
With everything going on in the world, it's better if you can find at least the place to plant your seed locally, and get it going again. Make a little bit of noise before you start throwing yourself in the middle of a hurricane. And that's what I did when I did those dates with Eric Sims that I talked about. I got a pulse for where I stood, and I know I don't have overwhelming support out there. I'm not the next new thing. I am an old thing that is getting polished up and coming back off the shelf.
Wow.
When you compare me to any of the other boys from ECW, whether it's Shane or Raven, any of them.
Well,
I'm ready. And I don't think any of them would be prepared to step in the ring with me. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah,
I'll be honest with you.
That's awesome. But,
this is just how I feel. Now, Shane, he might have the same attitude I do because of the start he got.
Yeah.
He was one of those guys it was doing his own thing in backyard wrestling stuff. Well, not necessarily backyard wrestling, but you'd have to say that because it was an outdoor thing that him and his friends put together. And Dominic happened to come to it and see him, and he took a liking to the kid, and he ended up training him like Kowalski trained me. Not around the same generation. I mean, it was around the same time. And, you know, he got the basics like I got the basics. And he knows. That's why he's, you know.
Yeah, I just saw him wrestle. I just saw him wrestle last weekend. I mean, he was great. But and Damien, I mean, like you said, it's the foundation, you know, and sometimes
they just haven't seen me do it with those guys yet. Paul would never let me in that inner circle of talent to use me as one of those key guys. I guess he was afraid because I had my own thing going. He didn't want to let me get too much. I don't know. You know?
Yeah. Who knows?
I don't know.
But luckily now, like you said, you're starting to get your feet wet a little bit and back into the game, and everything sounds like, you know, worked out for a reason. And I'm glad this passion was reignited, because that's only better for the wrestling world. And before I let you go, because you know, this has been really interesting, and I'm really happy we got to talk. Where can people find you on social media if they want to connect with you?
They can find me on Facebook, Damien Kane. I'm on Facebook. Should be able to recognize the face. And then Instagram. I don't do the Twitter thing, and I don't do much with Instagram. I'll be honest with you. Technology with all this stuff going on today, you know, I'm an old school guy. Give me a piece of paper and a pencil, and I can do it faster than that calculator or that cash register. But God dang it, I don't know that much about computers. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I get by. You know, basically what I do is I send out a thing once in a while. This month I had, you know, some stuff to talk about, birthday month for me, and I had some good plans laid out for the end of the month. You know, it was a private resort with my buddy.
Oh, nice.
Well, you know, it's good to have friends. Let's put it that way, because I sure as hell ain't in a position to have everybody come over to my big old mansion. You know, but
hey.
I have friends. Let's put it that way. And I've been having a ball, and I'm going to continue for the next couple of days, and then after that, that's it. Back to business.
Yeah.
So. But I appreciate those words, man. I just want to tell you before we go, thank you so much for those words, because you don't know what that means to me to hear that people remember you, that people appreciate the effort you put in, even though you're not on the national big stage, international stage. The people that knew what you did because of what they did get to see give you words like that. It just makes it all worthwhile. You know, I know that it wasn't for nothing. Because I don't consider myself anything special, any legend or icon, or, you know, that word is way too overused. But I can tell you who the real legends are, and the legends that I grew up looking up to, and laying the groundwork for what I want to continue on with. And, you know, those guys, those are legends. You know, I'm never going to be, you know, I don't want to be. It's never about the money. I would have made that move a long time ago. So anybody that thinks, he's never, no, it was never about the money. As a matter of fact, I was halfway given an opportunity to work with Vince's group, but I didn't. I choose to stick with Drake, and at that time we were a big part of what was going on with the group, with the National Wrestling Federation group. We were involved with the promoters. We were doing the booking, a lot of the booking, and the directing. You know, a lot of the stuff that was done. You have to understand, we didn't have mega millions of dollars doing it. We were doing it. We were, you know, in the studio with the editor and putting the thing together. We didn't have a team of, you know, producers and directors. No. We did it. We did it. Me and Drake were partners on that end of it. Yeah. And we made a commitment to each other that if we start getting where we're trying to go, you don't go without me, I won't go without you. Yeah. We stick together on this. Let's at least see this through. And we both agreed to do that until we parted companies later on for other reasons. I had other reasons to get away from things. You know, that was a whole new different chapter. But we, you know, we stuck together. And when there was an opportunity, and I have to save it for another time because you get me going on some of these subjects. Well, I'll tell you what, it's a whole new story. But I can tell you some things that happened, and I can show it to you. The documentation backing up what I'm saying, I can show it to you to prove that I'm not making it up. But you would be surprised how much what me and Drake did in the National Wrestling Federation, you would be surprised how much what I did has carried over and influenced quite a bit of what the fan today is watching. So, I mean, I'm not going to talk about particulars, but it would blow your mind if I told you one of the stories.
Wow.
So,
but it's
impressive. Been great talking to you too. I really appreciate the opportunity. I thank you for having me on.
Of course.
And I hope you a lot of success, and we'll see each other, I'm sure.
Yeah. And for us, this has been Wrestling IQ 101. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Wrestling IQ 101. You can subscribe right here on YouTube. Check out this episode, past episodes, and we'll see everybody very soon. And thank you for listening.